The stars above the Empire's homeworld had shone on them for 10,000 years, and through every century, the same dream guided their path. The dream of conquest. The dream of Earth. In the beginning, the aliens had only whispers of a distant blue world. Old explorers brought tales of a planet filled with water, forests, and creatures with endless energy. Those explorers spoke of a species that had climbed from caves to machines, from fire to electricity, all within the blink of a galactic eye. At first, the Empire dismissed these stories. To them, humanity was too young, too unshaped, too small to matter. But when human radio signals spread across space, the Empire listened. They heard music, speeches, and even jokes carried on the waves of light. They began to wonder if this strange, fast-moving species might one day rival their own power. That was a thought the Empire could not accept. So the leaders made a vow. They would prepare until no doubt remained. They would sharpen their armies and harden their fleets. They would turn the dream of Earth's conquest into the destiny of their people. And thus began the great preparation. Generations passed. On training grounds larger than cities, soldiers marched beneath three suns. Children were raised not with stories of their own heroes, but with images of human faces. They studied Earth's languages until they could speak them as their own. They watched old broadcasts of human wars, laughing at the chaos and lack of order. To the Empire, humans were wild creatures that could never match the perfect discipline of soldiers trained for millennia. In orbit, shipyards grew like forests of steel. Each vessel was a masterpiece, carved with patience, powered with engines that burned brighter than mountains. The Empire measured its fleets not in dozens or hundreds but in thousands. Every starship was designed with a single purpose, to crush resistance and remind the galaxy of the Empire's power. The High Council believed Earth would be the crown of their victories. Their scholars studied human weakness in detail. They counted the short span of human lives, the divisions of their nations, the arguments in their governments. To the Empire, humanity was not a united force but a fractured species. Easy prey. A ripe target. The years of preparation became centuries. The centuries became millennia. Still, the Empire trained. Some among them began to wonder if the humans they studied would even survive long enough to face them. Yet the vow remained unbroken. 10,000 years of planning forged patience into iron. On the eve of their great march, the Empire gathered its people. From the lowest soldier to the highest commander, they looked to the sky and recited the same words, "Earth will fall." To them, this was no simple battle. It was the closing of a story that had stretched across ages. When at last the order was given, the fleets moved. Great engines roared to life. Waves of warships slipped into the dark of space, carrying the weight of 10,000 years on their armored hulls. The invasion had begun. In the silence of their command chambers, the Empire's leaders smiled. To them, victory was already written. They believed no force on earth could match what they had built. They had trained for longer than human history itself. Their pride was endless. Their confidence unshaken. Far away, the blue world waited. Earth spun quietly beneath its sun, unaware of the storm approaching. Yet if the aliens had listened more closely, if they had understood what those scattered radio signals truly meant, they might have hesitated. For hidden in every human word, every song, every tale of struggle, there was a pattern. Not weakness. Not chaos. But survival. And survival was something the Empire had never truly faced. The first sign came as a shadow across the sky. At first, it was only a faint line, a glimmer that seemed no more than another satellite drifting above Earth. People pointed, curious but calm. Then the line grew wider, brighter, and stranger. Across every nation, telescopes turned upward. Scientists peered through their lenses and felt their voices falter. What they saw was not a star or a passing rock. It was something far greater. A shape of metal so large it blocked out constellations. The alien fleet had arrived. In space above Earth, the silence broke. The first of the Empire's warships slid into orbit, followed by more, row upon row, until the sky was heavy with their presence. Their hulls glowed with ancient markings, symbols of the Empire's long reign. Each ship carried weapons that could shatter mountains. Together, they formed an armada that no human eye had ever seen. On Earth, panic stirred. Cities stopped to watch as the sky filled with fire. News channels cut their stories short. Radios hummed with urgent reports. In every language, the same question was whispered: who are they? The answer came quickly. A voice filled the airwaves, deep and commanding, translated into every tongue at once. The Empire had prepared for this moment for centuries, and they would not allow misunderstanding. The message was clear. People of Earth, you now stand before the Empire. You will surrender your world. You will surrender your freedom. Resistance will bring your end. The message repeated again and again. Towers carried the sound, televisions displayed their sigils, and every device that could hold a signal spread the words. It was not an offer. It was a command. The alien leaders expected terror. They imagined humans falling to their knees, begging for mercy, crying out to the skies. Yet when the message reached homes and streets, something unexpected happened. Silence lingered. People did not bow. Instead, some laughed. Others frowned, shaking their heads. Many stood firm, their eyes not on the ground but on the sky. The Empire did not understand. They had studied human weakness for centuries, yet they had never studied human pride. They thought silence was fear. They thought laughter was madness. What they saw as confusion was something else entirely. Humanity was watching, waiting, measuring. On the ground, leaders gathered in hidden rooms. The first satellites confirmed the truth. Thousands of alien ships floated above them, each ready for war. Some leaders felt dread. Others felt anger. Together, they faced the impossible question: how does one fight an enemy that had trained for 10,000 years? In orbit, the aliens prepared their first strike. They aimed their cannons at an unimportant region, a remote island far from major cities. To them, it was a warning, not a battle. They would burn a small piece of earth to ash, then watch the humans kneel. Their commanders gave the order. The cannons fired. Bright fire cut through the night sky. For a moment, the world seemed to tremble. Then came the impact. Waves of energy rushed outward, lighting the oceans, shaking the clouds. The aliens expected screams, chaos, and despair. Instead, their victory was short-lived. Hidden defenses came alive. From deep below the oceans, human machines rose, sleek and sharp. Satellites that had once looked ordinary revealed their true nature, unfolding panels of steel and flame. The Empire's cannons did not strike a helpless world. They had struck a world that had learned to survive every trial it faced. The alien commanders watched in disbelief as their first ships cracked under counter-fire. Railguns shot streaks of light across the dark, tearing through armor the Empire had believed unbreakable. Human drones swarmed faster than the aliens could calculate, darting between their shields, cutting at their engines. What was meant to be a simple warning became the Empire's first taste of defeat. Ships that had trained in simulations for 10,000 years were now falling in real battle within minutes. On Earth, the people cheered as the skies lit with fire. They had seen the shadows, they had heard the threats, and now they saw hope. For the first time, the invaders realized the truth. Humanity was not a weak, fractured race. Humanity was something they had never faced before. And the arrival, which the Empire had believed would be their moment of triumph, became the beginning of their greatest fear. The alien fleet hung above Earth like a crown of fire. Thousands of ships glowed with power, and commanders sat in their grand chambers certain of victory. To them, the humans were only clever animals, armed with tools but lacking true strength. The first exchange of fire had surprised them, yet they still believed the battle was theirs to win. They gave the order for the first strike in full. No more warnings, no more shows of strength. They would burn human defenses to ash, scatter their armies, and remind them of the weight of 10,000 years of training. The fleet moved as one. Massive cannons opened, casting beams of white light through the void. Each blast tore across the sky, aiming for human strongholds. The ground shook as energy fell, bright as falling suns. But the earth did not crumble. The first beam struck shields hidden in orbit, human creations disguised as harmless satellites. Energy spread across glowing barriers, bending but not breaking. The second wave hit, tearing at the shields until they collapsed. Yet the fall of one defense only revealed another. Railguns hidden in the atmosphere fired upward with tremendous force. Projectiles cut through alien formations, each shot a spear of lightning that broke apart their elegant patterns. The aliens reeled. In their endless simulations, no resistance had lasted this long. Yet still they pressed forward. Smaller ships swarmed downwards, their commanders believing that humans could not fight at close range. Squadrons roared into the atmosphere, engines leaving trails of burning light. On the ground, people looked upward and braced for destruction. Cities prepared shelters, and armies stood ready. But the attack did not meet helpless targets. Fighter jets rose from runways, drones streaked into the air, and hidden launchers opened their bays. Humanity had kept much of its strength secret, built not for conquest but for defense. Now that defense awoke in full. The first alien squadron dove toward a coastal city. Their cannons fired at towers, tearing through rooftops, but within seconds human aircraft met them. Sleek jets raced through the sky, weaving between the alien ships. Missiles struck with precision, breaking apart enemy wings. Drones swarmed like hornets, attaching charges to their armor before exploding in blinding flashes. The aliens had expected easy victory. Instead, they met chaos. Human pilots did not fly in neat formations or predictable lines. They darted, turned, and risked everything, forcing the invaders to chase shadows. Alien commanders shouted orders, but their soldiers faltered, unused to such disorder. The skies became a storm of fire and steel. At sea, the Empire's warships descended toward the oceans, hoping to crush Earth's fleets in moments. Yet the waves themselves seemed to fight back. Submarines rose from the depths, launching torpedoes that cut through alien armor. Rail platforms hidden under the water fired into the sky, tearing apart ships that thought the oceans belonged to them. On the ground, civilians who had been told to hide now watched the battle with wide eyes. They saw not defeat but resistance. For every ship that burned, a cheer rose. For every alien weapon struck down, hope grew stronger. Above all this chaos, the Empire's commanders sat in disbelief. Their calculations were failing. Their strategies, perfected for 10,000 years, were collapsing in less than an hour. They had thought human technology was scattered and weak, yet here was a world fighting as one. But it was not only machines that confused them. It was the spirit of the humans themselves. Soldiers fought without hesitation, not because of orders alone but because of choice. Farmers turned tractors into barricades. Engineers rewired old machines into weapons. Students carried messages through broken streets to keep communication alive. Humanity fought not as a single army but as a living force, each part moving with its own will. The aliens could not understand this. They were trained to follow commands perfectly, to act as pieces of a grand design. But when faced with humans who broke patterns and invented new ways to strike back, they struggled. Order fell to chaos, and chaos belonged to Earth. By the end of the first strike, the Empire had lost more than they had ever expected. Fleets were scattered, ships burned, and commanders stared in silence at the chaos on their screens. What was meant to be the opening move of an easy conquest had become a disaster. And as the smoke cleared, humanity stood unbroken. The first strike had not ended the world. Instead, it had awakened it. The Empire's fleet drifted in chaos. Their first strike had failed, their mighty weapons had been answered, and their soldiers had met resistance they had never trained to face. Commanders sat in silent chambers, staring at screens filled with broken ships and scattered squadrons. For the first time in thousands of years, doubt touched them. The aliens had built their entire strategy on the belief that humans were weak, divided, and unprepared. Their scholars had studied human wars and saw nothing but confusion. They saw arguments between nations, constant struggles, and endless mistakes. To the Empire, this was proof of weakness. But what they had never understood was that these very struggles had shaped humanity in ways no training program could. On Earth, leaders watched the battle unfold. Their defenses had held, but only just. Cities shook, oceans boiled, and skies burned with falling wreckage. Yet the world still stood. The people of Earth had discovered something in that moment, something hidden not in machines or weapons but in themselves. In every nation, in every city, people worked together in ways that surprised even their own leaders. Old rivalries were forgotten. Old lines between borders and flags blurred. Engineers shared designs across oceans, soldiers from different countries fought side by side, and scientists who had never spoken to each other before now built solutions together in hours. This was the hidden truth the Empire had missed. Humanity's strength was not in perfection, but in its ability to adapt. Where the Empire relied on unbroken rules and strict training, humans relied on imagination and will. Each failure became a lesson. Each loss became fuel to fight harder. The aliens watched with growing unease. Their commanders reviewed recordings of human pilots who fought with strange patterns, soldiers who used broken machines in ways that should have been impossible, and civilians who turned ordinary objects into weapons of resistance. Nothing followed order, yet everything worked. In one battle over the desert, a squad of alien fighters had been defeated not by advanced human jets, but by simple drones built from spare parts. In another, a group of farmers had lured armored alien machines into a canyon, then collapsed the walls using nothing but old mining charges. These victories were small, but each one cut deep into the Empire's pride. The High Council gathered in secret chambers aboard the largest warship. They spoke in cold voices about what they were seeing. Their scholars had always taught that discipline was the highest form of strength. Now they faced an enemy that thrived in disorder. Humans did not follow one plan. They made 100 plans, and when those failed, they made 100 more. This was not weakness. This was survival. The hidden truth spread among the Empire's ranks like a quiet storm. Soldiers who had believed in certain victory now whispered doubts. Officers who had trusted in flawless training now questioned their orders. Every failure of the invasion opened cracks in the Empire's perfect image. Meanwhile, on Earth, the people began to see themselves differently. For generations, they had argued, fought, and even doubted their own unity. But now, as they faced an enemy that had trained for 10,000 years, they realized what set them apart. Humanity did not break when pushed. Humanity bent, shifted, and found new ways forward. A scientist in one city used old satellites to send signals that confused alien targeting systems. A group of students turned their knowledge of coding into tools that disrupted alien communications. Mechanics took down alien drones and rebuilt them to serve as weapons against their former masters. Every human hand, whether young or old, skilled or unskilled, became part of the fight. The Empire's commanders could not understand how such an uncoordinated race could stand against them. Their logic told them that humans should fall in days. Instead, they were losing ships in minutes. Their pride told them humans were fragile. Instead, they found that humans were unyielding. The hidden truth was clear. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its machines, not its armies, not even its leaders. It was the simple refusal to give up. As the battle raged on, the Empire realized too late that they had misjudged their enemy. For 10,000 years they had trained to fight strength with greater strength. But Earth was not a world of perfect soldiers or flawless order. Earth was a world of survivors. And against survivors, no amount of training could guarantee victory. The battle above Earth had reached a moment of tension unlike anything the Empire had imagined. Their first strike had failed. Their fleet had been damaged. Their soldiers had met resistance they could not predict. Commanders of the Empire began to realize that victory was no longer certain. On the ground, humans moved quickly and without hesitation. Every region became a battlefield and a fortress at the same time. Cities that had once been peaceful centers of work and trade were now hubs of resistance and innovation. People of all ages, skills, and backgrounds worked together. Farmers and engineers, students and workers, scientists and soldiers, all joined forces. In a mountainous region, a squadron of alien landing ships descended. The aliens believed they would meet empty villages and broken towns. Instead, they found the land transformed. Hills had been cut into trenches, trees had been used to hide traps, and rocks were stacked to create barriers. Every step the aliens took was watched, measured, and countered. From the sky, human aircraft swooped down, not in large formations, but in small, fast-moving teams. They dodged alien fire and struck at weak points in armor. Their speed, courage, and unpredictability frustrated the alien pilots. For the first time, the aliens were forced to retreat mid-combat. On the coast, massive warships of the Empire had planned to take control of the oceans. They fired their main cannons at ports and docks, expecting to destroy anything in sight. Yet humans had prepared for this moment. Submarines hidden beneath the waves fired torpedoes with perfect timing. Fishing vessels, converted into mobile platforms, launched smaller weapons and missiles. Even simple machines, designed for everyday work, were transformed into instruments of resistance. The alien ships were forced to navigate carefully, slowing their attack and losing the advantage of speed. In the capital cities, human leaders coordinated their defenses through communication networks that had been secretly strengthened for this day. Messages traveled instantly between units, allowing soldiers to respond quickly to alien movements. Civilians carried out emergency plans that had been practiced but never truly needed before. Roads, bridges, and tunnels became tools of strategy. Streets were cleared of hazards, and abandoned buildings were transformed into watchpoints. The turning point came when a human engineer found a weakness in the alien command network. Using computers, satellites, and clever coding, the humans disrupted communications between ships. Orders arrived too late or in error. Squadrons were forced to act independently, which, in the chaos of battle, made them easy targets. Everywhere, humans adapted. They did not rely on one strategy. They tried one plan, saw what failed, and immediately adjusted. No alien could have imagined the speed at which humans could learn in the middle of combat. When one plan did not work, a new one replaced it. When one weapon failed, a new weapon appeared. Every mistake became a lesson. Every attack made them stronger. Alien commanders realized their mistake. They had trained for perfection, but humans thrived on imperfection. Where their simulations failed, humans excelled. Where their rules bound them, humans moved freely. The Empire's strength was rigid, and rigidity could not withstand the flow of human will. Above the deserts, hills, forests, and oceans, humans showed the Empire something it had never seen: courage in the face of impossible odds, creativity in the shadow of destruction, and unity when survival demanded it. Soldiers fought not just because they were told to, but because they chose to. Civilians resisted not out of obligation, but out of the simple, powerful need to live. By the end of the day, the Empire's fleets were battered. Ships had been destroyed, others were forced to retreat, and alien soldiers were retreating in confusion. Commanders realized that their carefully built strategies were collapsing. Their soldiers, trained for millennia, could not adapt to the unpredictable force they faced. For humans, this was only the beginning. The turning point had shown them that they could not only survive, but they could fight back. Humanity had learned that it was stronger together. It had learned that preparation alone was not enough. Courage, imagination, and determination were just as important. The Empire, for the first time, began to doubt. They had trained for 10,000 years to conquer a world. They had expected defeat to come easily. Instead, they faced a species that refused to be broken, species that thrived in challenge, species that turned every strike into opportunity. And in that moment, the balance shifted. The turning point had come. The Empire's fleet had once moved like a single living organism, perfect and unyielding. Now it staggered in the sky, broken and confused. Ships that had been symbols of 10,000 years of training drifted in silence, burning and falling. Their formation, once flawless, was shattered. Commanders shouted into voids, giving orders that could not be followed. Every plan, every strategy, every calculation had failed. On Earth, humans had grown stronger with every moment of battle. They adapted with speed that astonished even their own soldiers. Each encounter with the alien fleet taught them something new. They found weaknesses in alien shields, patterns in their weapons, and habits in their movements. Where one human unit failed, another rose immediately to continue the fight. Nothing was wasted, and every resource was used with intelligence and courage. In the skies over the mountains, an alien assault squadron advanced with confidence, believing that humans could not resist another wave. They dove toward small towns, hoping to destroy critical infrastructure. Yet they were met with a storm of fire. Human jets swooped down from hidden valleys. Drones darted between buildings and trees, striking at engines and fuel stores. Ordinary citizens used improvised weapons and tools, setting traps along roads and in abandoned buildings. The aliens had never seen such unpredictability. Even in the oceans, the Empire's massive ships were failing. Torpedoes and missiles fired from human submarines sank vessels that were thought to be invincible. Cargo ships, fishing boats, and floating platforms had been converted into mobile weapons. The humans used everything they could to strike, and the alien commanders had no answer. As the hours passed, morale among the invaders collapsed. Soldiers who had trained for centuries were now terrified, seeing their comrades destroyed in ways they could not understand. They began to panic. Formation after formation broke apart. Ships collided in the confusion, and engines that had been flawless for millennia exploded in flames. Communication between vessels failed as human interference disrupted their systems. On Earth, soldiers celebrated small victories, knowing they were part of a larger triumph. Communities united to protect each other. People who had once feared the alien invasion now felt power. The aliens were not invincible. Their weapons were strong, but their will could be broken. Humanity's determination had turned the tide. In orbit, the Empire's leaders finally understood the full scope of their failure. Their calculations had been perfect only in theory. In practice, humans did not act predictably. They did not follow patterns. They used intelligence, courage, and creativity to survive. Where simulations had predicted rapid conquest, the reality was chaos for the invaders and control for the humans. The collapse accelerated when alien ground forces tried to take cities. Soldiers trained for centuries met unexpected resistance. Civilians led them into traps. Fires, explosions, and collapsing structures slowed their advance. Tanks, machines, and robots were sabotaged. Human units attacked from every side. Every step forward cost the invaders heavily. The Empire's pride had been built on certainty. They had trained endlessly to be flawless. They had studied countless species, and they had never been defeated. But humans were not like other species. Humans improvised. Humans survived. Humans turned weakness into strength. And the Empire had never imagined an enemy like that. By the end of the first full day, the alien fleet was a shadow of its former power. Ships had been destroyed, crews were scattered, and the command structure was in ruins. Soldiers no longer trusted orders. Pilots abandoned their missions. The once mighty invasion force was collapsing from within. Above all, the Empire had learned something they could not ignore. Humanity's resilience was more powerful than 10,000 years of training. Their courage, creativity, and unity had broken the invaders' perfection. The Empire had built everything to win, but humans had shown that some forces cannot be crushed by strength alone. And as the night fell over the earth, a strange silence spread through the alien command ships. For the first time, the invaders knew that they were not in control. Their fleets were failing, their soldiers were panicking, and their dreams of conquest were falling apart. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought back. And in the hearts of the Empire, fear had begun to grow. The collapse was complete. The Empire's strategy, built over 10,000 years, could not survive the unpredictable will of a single planet. Humans had proven that preparation alone was not enough. Theirs was a strength that could not be simulated or trained. It was raw, it was real, and it was unstoppable. The sky above Earth was still bright with the last fires of the alien fleet. Smoke and debris drifted in the wind, and the sound of distant explosions echoed over mountains, forests, and cities. The battle had lasted hours, yet the most decisive moments had come in mere minutes. Humanity had faced an enemy that had trained for 10,000 years and survived what the invaders believed was impossible. On the ground, soldiers and civilians alike looked up at the sky, their hearts pounding with disbelief and triumph. Machines that had once been thought invincible were now wrecks. Alien technology, built to dominate entire planets, had failed against human ingenuity and courage. People who had feared for their lives were now filled with a sense of power they had never known. In orbit, the alien commanders tried to regroup. Their largest ships were damaged, some heavily. Smaller vessels were lost or stranded in the atmosphere. Pilots and soldiers looked to their leaders for guidance, but there was none to give. Confusion reigned. 10,000 years of planning had been destroyed in less than an hour of real combat. The aliens realized that all their simulations and all their strategies could not prepare them for the human spirit. Humans on Earth did not stop to celebrate. Every individual knew that the fight was not over, yet the moment marked a turning point. For centuries, humanity had survived countless disasters, wars, and crises. Every challenge had taught them resilience, patience, and adaptation. Now, faced with the greatest threat in their history, they had applied those lessons in perfect harmony. Across continents, messages of victory spread quickly. Soldiers communicated through networks, sharing tactics that had worked. Communities repaired damage, cleared rubble, and assisted those in need. Children, who had watched the skies in fear, now ran through streets with wide eyes, learning that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. The Empire's fleet, once a symbol of ultimate power, now became a testament to failure. Ships burned in orbit or crashed into oceans. Alien soldiers fled in confusion, abandoning positions they had trained to hold for generations. Each attempt to regroup was met by human ingenuity. Even simple tactics, like collapsing bridges or blocking roads, slowed the invaders. Every step humans took was calculated and unpredictable, exploiting the weaknesses that the aliens had failed to consider. It was in those minutes that the true power of humanity became clear. The invaders, for all their preparation, had counted on order and control. They had relied on precision and prediction. Humans, however, had no master plan. They acted with creativity, courage, and the willingness to adapt at every turn. Every strike, every defense, every action reflected the essence of a species that had survived countless challenges. By the fifth minute of the decisive wave, The alien commanders understood the final truth. They had trained for perfection, yet perfection had failed. They had built machines of war, yet humans had used simple tools, clever thinking, and teamwork to destroy them. They had underestimated an unpredictable species that did not rely on calculations alone but on heart, courage, and instinct. On Earth, people did not boast. They did not claim victory as their own, for survival had been the goal, not glory. Yet as they looked up at the burning alien vessels, they understood what they had achieved. They had faced an enemy older, stronger, and more prepared than any they had ever imagined. And they had survived. They had not just survived, they had dominated the first encounter by showing that willpower, unity, and creativity could surpass even the greatest technology. The Empire's leaders faced a harsh reality. Their fleet was broken. Their soldiers were in retreat. Their strategies had failed. 10,000 years of training had been undone in less than 5 minutes of human ingenuity. And in that moment, they knew they had encountered a species they could never predict, a species whose power lay not in weapons or simulations but in the unyielding drive to survive and adapt. As night fell over Earth, silence returned to the world, but it was not quiet. Cities slowly stirred, people repaired what had been damaged, and humanity began to rebuild. The invaders had arrived expecting to conquer. They had counted on fear, obedience, and weakness. Instead, they met courage, cleverness, and resilience. The 5 minutes that had defined the battle would be remembered for generations. In that short span, humanity had proven that survival was more than a fight, it was a statement. Humans had shown that even the greatest preparation could not overcome the spirit of a determined species. The galaxy, watching from afar, would soon learn that Earth was not a world to be conquered lightly. And so, the sky cleared, leaving Earth standing. The alien threat was not gone, but it had been shown that humanity could face anything. Humans had survived against impossible odds, and in those 5 minutes, they had changed the future. The world had seen the truth: humanity was not prey. Humanity was the storm that no army, no matter how powerful, could tame.